a podcast. You will never believe who we're talking about today. But first, a message from our past selves just a couple of months ago. I guess that's something that you won't find on the internet, though, is Billy Mitchell's winning some of these. Like, he's settling some of them for positive results. He's getting his fees paid in some of the things, and no one ever mentions that. But, and if his main law firm is working on a contingency, he's not. His cash outlay is probably 50, 60 grand, which is a lot, but it's not like Twin Galaxies, which has to be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. So, if he keeps going, like, I don't know. He could be, his strategy could be a good one. He could slowly bleed them until they have to come to the table and settle. Although, in the crux of the case, I don't know if there's a jury in the world that's gonna... All right, and with that, let me just make sure I say, for all the YouTube commenters from last video, I told you so. I absolutely 100% told you so. And, you know, we got so much flack, and we actually have over the last few videos and everything. Anytime we talk about Billy Mitchell, because we're, like, kind of seen as the positive Billy Mitchell people. Like we're pro Billy Mitchell. And yes, like, you know, like, I think the last video was called something like Billy Mitchell is screwed or something like that. So I don't think we've been overly positive for Billy Mitchell, but we have tried to be a little bit the voice of reason as this has been happening, because as we've said previously, Kelsey and I are formerly practicing attorneys. Now we run Free Play Arcade. So we have kind of an interesting perspective here in that we tried cases. And I tried a lot of cases. I was a real trial litigator for many years. And as these cases were developing, because Billy Mitchell, of course, has sued a lot of people. And we've had lots and lots of litigation from Billy Mitchell that has made the internet very mad. He sued his friends, he sued Twin Galaxies, all of this stuff that people are really against him for. And also he probably cheated on Donkey Kong, which was what we're going to bring up today, because Billy Mitchell won. That's I guess the headline here. Billy Mitchell won.
What?
And again, this is not us trying to be pro Billy Mitchell, even though Billy Mitchell won. And let me be very, very clear on that point, because everyone else on the internet is somehow trying to frame this as Billy Mitchell didn't win. Like, they are, I mean, like, I don't want to sound too Gen Z here, but, you know, it's copium, right? They're desperately trying to cope with what just happened here. So let's go ahead and we're going to dive right in, and we're going to say what happened.
Well, but can I say something? I am pro Billy Mitchell.
You're pro Billy Mitchell now. Whoa.
You know what?
You're
like, I'm tired of being the
Mitchell.
responsible one. I think that I want to live in a world where I can just be pro Billy Mitchell. So I am.
That's too controversial. I don't know if the YouTube commenters are going to handle that. But yeah, so Billy Mitchell and Twin Galaxies, they were in a lawsuit. We don't need to spend too much time getting into it. Basically over whether or not he cheated on Donkey Kong. They said he cheated. He sued them for defamation. They removed him from the record books. He sued to be put back into the record books. And he sued lots of other people that have mostly settled now. There's one other lawsuit that we'll get to at the end of the podcast that's still going to be active. But Twin Galaxies and Billy Mitchell were in a very, very nasty lawsuit, 5 years going, with just an unbelievable amount of money and resources being dumped into Donkey Kong. Like a Donkey Kong record that, even if it's real, is not the current record or anything like that. It's nowhere close. It's not top 10. It's not top 20. It is just a number that was scored on a game, maybe, depending on who you believe. So they came to the table. The trial was getting closer. There was a big hearing coming up on some discovery disputes that I'll talk about in a second. And they sat down and they settled. And what they settled for is technically confidential, but we can kind of see based on both of their behavior what happened. So Billy Mitchell, he went to Twitter a couple days ago, and he said, and we'll make sure we throw the tweet on the podcast and everything, but he goes on to Twitter and he says, Twin Galaxies has reinstated all of my records, all of my world records. I'm the greatest. I told you so. That's not verbatim, but yeah, that was the gist of his. Twin Galaxies statement to me was very interesting. Twin Galaxies, they say that these scores were originally accepted and posted on the Twin Galaxies based on videotape submission, live referee, all of this stuff. That there was a claim against them, and that this new expert has come up and has said that maybe it's possible they weren't fake, they weren't cheating. based on the videotape evidence with the girder. We've all talked about those girder issues on MAME, and the fact that one of Billy Mitchell's videos had that perfect girder issue that is duplicated in MAME. But he found an expert that said, I don't know, like maybe it's not the MAME. Like, I mean, that was pretty much the gist of the expert report. And I can actually go through the expert report super fast, but the expert says arcade games are old, so who knows how they're going to malfunction. Who knows what's going to happen if the power supply has a voltage drop? Who knows? Like, he's not saying that he can duplicate it. He just says, who knows?
Who is this expert? I mean, like, anyone could say that. Who knows?
His name is Michael Zaida. And he does not seem to have any specific expertise in this. He does have a CIS degree, Computer Information Sciences, from University of Massachusetts Amherst.
He also like the top school.
I mean, it's a good school. But you know, and then he has apparently a PhD in engineering. I guess the point that Twin Galaxies says is he's a qualified expert under California courts because he has testified in some other cases before. Now,
like what other cases? Like on the topics of old video games, like Donkey
Kong?
No,
but he's been an engineer expert, like an electrical engineer expert in the past. And so they got him, and I mean, this is like truly just, he wrote a 2-page Word document, and this is his expert's report. And he says, everyone who has said stuff, I don't think that they're thinking it all the way through. And he talks about how Billy Mitchell used a really crappy 2-bit converter box, which is the name of the converter box, 2-bit converter, to take the output from the game and put it onto a VHS. He also talks about how Billy Mitchell doesn't know how to take care of VHS tapes and VHS players.
I mean, they're really hard to take care of. They get messed up pretty fast.
Well, yeah, cleaning the heads and everything. He talks about it. And he talks about how, because of that, who knows? Like, who knows what kind of errors could have happened.
I think that's where you're losing me.
That is...
And he says... Who knows how they ran the video cables? What if they ran them right next to a power supply? Maybe that could have caused the girder issue.
Did he replicate this in any way? Did he do any tests?
Well, he did do some tests, which were inconclusive. He was not able to replicate the issue, but he does say that they were able to destroy all sorts of stuff and cause all sorts of other issues.
Issues that
like
are
videotape issues.
To
kind of actually. He did say that he was able to create some anomalies in the tape that were kind of the girder finger issue, not the identical one that happens in MAME and also happened in Billy Mitchell's video, but he was able to create some of those.
and pictures of that. I just want to.
No, there's no pictures.
What?
I mean, there's pictures of the girder
side by
finger.
side. Like this is what I did.
No.
This is what the girder issue looks like.
The expert absolutely did not submit any photos, and the expert actually just says that he was working with a 2-bit converter, and he had some help from some other people, and they replaced some components to try to mimic the age, because Billy Mitchell stored his in a garage in Florida where perhaps it degraded. I don't know. Like, they're just kind of messing around.
I mean, I think what they're saying is true, like, to a certain extent, right? Like, it's impossible to say conclusively that under no set of circumstances this could ever, is that the idea?
But if I claim that there's a teapot in between Mars and Jupiter, and it's so small that you can't see with any telescope, you can't disprove that.
Well, I mean, but in a legal case, Arthur, like, I don't know. If you look at what we're looking at here, like, the question is, can we prove he's lying conclusively prove he's lying about this?
I was very convinced that it was MAME from the video and the...
But is it beyond a reasonable doubt, Arthur?
In my professional arcade working opinion...
I'm sorry, I don't want to confuse anyone. That's a criminal standard. But still, I was just asking Arthur.
But in my professional, as a arcade working person, I would say this is beyond a reasonable doubt.
Oh, okay, well...
So,
I mean,
do I count as an expert?
Now, here's one of the things that I'll say, though. So Billy Mitchell's expert didn't actually run any of the tests himself. His testimony on that is all third party, not, I mean, hearsay, yes, but, like, literally just...
Wait, so he just
He wrote
listen
an
to
opinion.
people tell them.
Yes.
Tell him that they did tests and
Yes.
that it. So he doesn't even know if you can produce somewhat similar results because he didn't
Which
run
is,
these
you know,
tests?
that's how the
Did
cross.
he witness these tests?
That's how the cross-examination of every expert I've ever cross-examined goes, is the expert says a bunch of stuff, and then you basically say exactly what you just said, and then the jury says. Then both sides produce an expert that says stuff that is conflicting, and both sides attack the experts just how you just did, and then everyone just kind of sits there.
But there was no jury because it didn't make it.
It didn't make
far.
it to the jury, no. But that is Twin Galaxies' basis. This expert's report is Twin Galaxies' basis.
I mean, this is Billy Mitchell's expert.
Yes.
And their basis for this
yes.
is this expert's testimony.
Probably because I assume.
Is it so hard to say we just didn't want to fight about it anymore?
I mean, for Twin Galaxies, apparently. I mean, Twin Galaxies has to deal with a credibility problem, and we'll talk about that a lot coming up. But
I feel like they have increased their credibility problems as of late.
You would think so. People hate Billy Mitchell so much
That
though,
they like Twin Galaxies more.
that they're all kind of excusing this behavior from Twin Galaxies away.
I mean, they created him to a certain extent.
Well, and that's something we should talk about soon. But first, let's just finish up the Twin Galaxies statement. They say that they have reaccepted all of his scores, all the disputed scores, even the main one is reaccepted. They also say, though, that they're putting it in the historical database. Now, this is a change that Twin Galaxies has made kind of recently, and let me be clear that this is not a very clean division that they've made. But they say now that they have a historical database, there are records from before they took over Twin Galaxies, and then the records since after they took over Twin Galaxies. The interesting thing is, I was just going through the records. I looked up a couple of the disputed records that I know are fake, that I know are false, that everyone knows are false, such as like the Alpine ski record, which is just literally impossible under the settings allegedly it was obtained, and it was still in there. It was still in there, not under the historical database. I could go into the historical database.
What?
I could go to the historical database and find it, but then I could also go to the modern database and find the same record that is absolutely just impossible. The interesting thing is I actually saw Jace Hall discussing it, and they all know that it's fake, but they haven't exactly figured out how to deal with that.
I mean, I thought the historical database was clearly the way to deal with it, and they're still not using it.
Well, so I think the key is they didn't want to just delete all the records.
Right, no, I understand that, but why would that record
They should have a third
been
database
moved?
of debunked fake records.
Well,
I mean, I think they should throw everything into the historical and only move things out of it when they have, like, videotape.
Well, and
That
I mean,
is
they do have, I mean, a lot, the majority, if not almost all, of their new-ish records are all YouTube videotape. But, I mean, aren't we kind of falling into another trap that is similar to the Billy Mitchell trap? Because, and that's, I can say it right now, there are records that they accepted from YouTube that were then proved to be faked over and over. Like, this just keeps happening.
How are they faking those?
I mean,
They just,
so here's the other thing. Twin Galaxies is tracking allegedly 130,000 records. So the odds of verification on all of them are pretty slim, even if there's video evidence. But the video evidence is never like, here's necessarily the real system and all of that. It's, here's the gameplay.
Well, I did a high score run with Keith Carlson when he was going for world record in versus Castlevania some years ago. And I made sure that I checked out how the rules worked. They were very specific that you had to show the inside of the arcade game with the board and show the dip switch settings during boot up, while you then show the gameplay footage afterwards. And you are not allowed to have any cut in the camera between showing the boot sequence on and the dip switch settings to the gameplay footage. And I also had a second direct capture feed to.
But of course,
that seems very complete.
Yeah, except I could fake a record in a second with that.
Well,
setup.
I mean, it is true.
Well,
I think we're getting to the point where we can
It's a
fake
good deal
almost
more
anything now.
challenging, though.
Well, I mean, I think the truth is, I mean, if Twin Galaxies honestly like, so instead of being the arbiter of every record ever, for video games, because like there's like obscure racing games that they're allegedly tracking 1,000 records like for every single track of games that people don't even play. Stuff like that. They should have a list of the games that they are tracking. And quite frankly, if it's an old game that can be easily cheated on or faked or anything, it should be verified with third-party independent referees. Now, what we're talking about is very expensive and it's never going to happen.
Well, why also could
Do
they
we
not
care
just
about
put
high
qualifying notes next to their high scores
Yeah, it's interesting.
that say this is the basis for the high score? There's a limit in the evidence we have for it. It has been challenged.
Well, I mean,
we're not making an ultimate determination, but this is all the information we have.
And then there's records on games like Astro Blaster that are just almost certainly impossible, but no one's been able to disprove it. And the problem comes in there is there were different releases of Astro Blaster. Now the rules require a certain version, the third version, but Astro Blaster, the earlier versions, you could just put coins in or credits even and keep going in your score. So you could increase your score. It's kind of like opening the top of a pinball and just faking your score. And it seems very, very likely that that's where this referee verified world record came from. And then they adopted real rules, and all of a sudden that's been locked in since 1982. And the absolute best players in the world are getting like 1/3 of the world record score right now. So like there's so many issues with these records. So Twin Galaxies, I can't even say that I know how I would respond if I was Twin Galaxies, especially in the situation where they came and they buy a company, right? That was definitely shady as heck. Lots of fake records. And now they're trying to somehow legitimize it / monetize it somehow.
Well, so I actually have that question, because when we're talking about all this stuff and how they're tracking the records and keeping the records, I'm like, how many staff members do they have? Like, how many resources do they have to devote to this? But then I have no idea how their money works.
I don't think it works at all. I don't think that there's a clear path to profitability for Twin Galaxies, especially if they aren't being able to license their records to people who care. I think the full extent of their monetizations right now is merch. Like buy Twin Galaxies merch.
Have you ever seen anyone with Twin Galaxies merch?
I mean, no. I mean, I definitely did back in the day when Walter Day was running around Twin Galaxies. Like when I went to Mall of America to play in a big tournament, and Walter Day was there.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, Walter Day was a hype man, for sure. And I mean, Walter Day, I don't think cared too much about the validity of the records. He cared about the press. He cared about the attention. And I don't know for sure, but there have been lots of accusations that Walter Day kind of knew that people were up to no good. But, when you had a character like Billy Mitchell, you want to prop him up at all costs. But point is, Twin Galaxies has accepted Billy Mitchell's old records in their historical database. And most people are saying that he's still banned from Twin Galaxies, but that kind of goes to what we were just talking about. Does Twin Galaxies matter? Are they relevant anymore? If they're willing to accept this settlement after spending all of that money...
Where did they get that money, though?
Well,
questions.
I mean, the owner of Twin Galaxies seems to have some sort of connection to like esports venture capital. So like he clearly had access to funding. He bought Twin Galaxies, and he has been running Twin Galaxies. And in many ways, kind of seems like, I don't know how many staff members they actually have, but he seems like one of the few. Running Twin Galaxies, and obviously he's been defending a lawsuit now for 5 years from Billy Mitchell, and I mean they accepted this expert's opinion just as it is as part of the settlements. Now, do they really? Probably not. Do they think he cheated? Probably. Are they ever going to say that again? No. Did they delete all of the references to him cheating? Yes. So they have kind of scrubbed their site of Billy Mitchell except for his historical records, and now everyone's moving on. That's the settlement. Now, let's talk a little bit, though. So, I want to get into the litigation posture, which is probably, why this settlement happened when it did. So, last podcast, we talked about a bunch of discovery disputes, including that Namco plaque. I don't know if y'all remember. Yeah. There's a Namco plaque, and it's Twin Galaxies. It was their position. Now it's not their position, but it was their position that Namco didn't actually give that to Billy Mitchell or award it to Billy Mitchell. Again, there's a photo of Billy Mitchell on a stage receiving the plaque from the president at the time of Namco, and it has the signature of the Namco president on the plaque. I think eventually they were going to say that it was just a whole thing that was created by Walter Day and Billy Mitchell to increase Billy Mitchell's thing, and Namco just went along with it. It increased his reputation, so Namco went along with it. I don't really know about that. Then there was that time. Then they started finding different copies of the plaque that didn't match each other, and so, and Billy Mitchell is very kind of good at creating these doubt things. He's very good at telling half truths. He's very good at. He's actually a really good witness. So I've now listened to his deposition a few times. He's clean, guys. I don't even think it was his lawyers who coached him, like, because before you ever send someone to do a deposition, you talk to them about how that's going to work. Some people would call it coaching. A good lawyer's not coaching answers. They're coaching kind of like how to do a good job in your deposition. Billy Mitchell nailed it. Like, and I've seen all of these funny videos on YouTube from Billy Mitchell's deposition saying like, they've got him. And again, guys, Billy Mitchell just won. So they never got him. They didn't get him. They have settled. And Billy Mitchell's scores are reinstated based on expert testimony from Billy Mitchell's expert. So whatever kind of weird way you want to cope with it, Billy Mitchell has just cleaned Twin Galaxies' clock, and it's not even close. Now, how did he do it? By creating these funny discovery disputes. I actually think this is going to end up being a very crucial part of it. So Twin Galaxies' attorney was a guy named David Tashrudian. I believe that's it. He goes by Tash. And Tash... he got really, really worked up over this Billy Mitchell stuff. Billy Mitchell got under his skin deep, guys. Like it's to the point that David Tashrudian, Tash, he had to file with the court after the court had a hearing on his conduct. He had to file an official apology with the court, begging the court not to refer him to the bar for his behavior on behalf of Twin Galaxies. So I'm going to kind of go through how this happened, but this all comes from these discovery items that David Tashrudian just thinks that Billy Mitchell's kind of like behind the scenes. He's orchestrating all of these evil, nefarious things, and somehow getting away with discovery abuses, lying to the court, lying under his deposition. Which, of course, lying in your deposition in a lawsuit is still illegal. But like when you're in a head-to-head kind of litigation, one side's going to have their story, the other side's going to have their story. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle, and both sides are probably going to do everything they can to make their version of the truth look right without necessarily just like lying.
Yeah, and that's just kind of par for the course. So I guess I'm wondering what Billy Mitchell did to like really get to him.
Well, so it absolutely was the discovery abuse. I think you combine it with, so this attorney's flying around the country, interviewing people, deposing people, trying to find these plaques. I mean, like, this plaque thing became easily a $50,000 to $100,000 boondoggle for Twin Galaxies.
I mean, but like, why does he even care? He's getting paid, isn't he?
In theory. But Twin Galaxies can't be happy about how this is going. So Twin Galaxies very clearly started to get tired of how much the litigation was costing.
Sure.
And they were pretty much just, Twin Galaxies had to accept this situation where they've already dumped a lot of money, and trial is going to come up. There's a discovery hearing coming up, and the discovery hearing is this dispute between, first, it's Billy Mitchell. Twin Galaxies tried to get him sanctioned for all of his stuff. What I'll say is I've read all of the motions. They were not going to get Billy Mitchell sanctioned.
Sanctioned for, like, what?
It's for the plaques.
Oh.
For the plaques here, and I can actually pull it up and get the exact reasons. But in short, they thought...
He was, like, fabricating evidence, or...?
They thought, yeah, he was... And they thought he was lying, which, again, you can't really get sanctions unless if you have, like, very clear evidence of lying and that they knew they were lying.
Right.
So, like, I really
think...
if
you're like, we've never had that piece of evidence, Your Honor, and later on we find a videotape of you burning it. Like,
right.
Sanctions.
That'll get you sanctioned, yeah.
But, like, just characterizing things the way that you want to characterize them is not sanctionable, normally.
And... So I am trying to pull up the exact list of everything, but the plaques were the primary thing, and they're accusing Billy Mitchell of hiding these plaques and saying that he didn't know where they were, and I'll get into exactly what they thought Billy Mitchell had done with the plaques. Again, I guess I should take a quick step back because I'm saying the word plaque a lot, but. These plaques were not relevant to the case. The plaques were the only basis you could use the plaques in this lawsuit were to try to prove that Billy Mitchell is a liar. Now, in my opinion as a lawyer, I would have taken the photos of the plaques and been so satisfied. Because who cares about where the actual plaques are? Like, you don't actually need them to create a ton of doubt in the jury's mind. That one photo of the two plaques being different, that would be enough. And you could actually get those introduced as evidence on cross on Billy Mitchell if you said, you go to Billy Mitchell and you say something like, isn't it true that you've never won a legitimate video game award in your life? And Billy Mitchell will immediately let you bring all of this stuff in. And it's not that you're not saying that Billy Mitchell never won that as the attorney. You're just starting to get doubt to be, the jury's immediately going to be like, this guy seems really shady. This guy seems like he has definitely lied at one time in his life. And as soon as you get the jury to kind of think that in their head, whether or not you prove it definitively, the jury's not going to trust Billy Mitchell at all.
It's exactly the sort of thing when you poll juries afterwards, even though it didn't really have much to do with the case at all, that they're like, yeah, but those plaques, they really proved that he was a liar, and it can be case determinative, even though it really shouldn't be.
And so this attorney, Tash, the attorney for Twin Galaxies, he got totally worked up over these discovery things. And these were the things that he was mad about. He thinks Billy Mitchell lied to him about receiving $33,000 from Walter Day in connection with the sale of Twin Galaxies. Apparently, Billy Mitchell testified that he received $33,000 from Walter Day as a result of that, and they've never been able to produce the evidence that he actually did. What's the relevance to this exact case?
Yeah, why does the attorney care?
Well, he just wants to prove that Billy Mitchell's a liar. But he was like, produce the checks, and they're like, we'd have lost them, or whatever. It doesn't matter. It happens in discovery all the time, and you have to accept that and let go of them. That's great testimony, cross-examination, right? Did you receive this? And if Billy Mitchell then says, yes, I did receive that, and it's like, why haven't you been able to give me one piece of evidence? That's enough for the jury. The jury's not going to care that, you did or didn't get the check. You've proved that he's probably lying about it.
But why would you even lie about that?
I don't know. And then he was mad that Billy Mitchell said...
Wait, is it on his tax return? No, I'm seeing...
That was the thing. They never got the tax returns, and that's another thing they're mad about. They never got these things that
what did they need the tax returns for?
Well, theoretically, if you got paid for the sale of something, you should have to declare it as income.
That could
but
be.
People frequently don't actually declare things as income because it's not really indicative if it's not on your tax return. That just says that you defrauded the government while you were at it. Other things.
And it's past statute of limitations anyway, so it wouldn't. There's no referral or anything you could do there. You're just basically trying to prove that he's a liar, which I think you can actually. You can get plenty of headway with the jury just by saying, you said this. Is this true? Yes or no? You received $33,000.
That sounds really confusing. Just even going down that line of questioning, they're going to think it's important, and it's not important. So I almost wouldn't.
Well, so then the Tash, the attorney for Twin Galaxies, was mad, and he thinks that Billy Mitchell lied about being a director in the International Video Game Hall of Fame. He thinks that Billy Mitchell's not a director of it. I think the truth is someone told Billy Mitchell that he was going to be a director or was a director, and they didn't really file any of the paperwork because it's not exactly like a very carefully run organization. And we talked about this last podcast. I don't want to get too much into it, but the International Video Game Hall of Fame is just something that someone made up, right? That's all Hall of Fames are.
Most things are.
Yeah. And Billy Mitchell has definitely been associated with it, involved with it. But he says he wasn't a director because, again, there's no piece of paper that says Billy Mitchell's never produced a piece of paper that says he's a director. So he wants to, but that's the other thing. Like if there's no piece of paper, Billy Mitchell doesn't have to produce anything. The end. And you could say, yeah, Billy Mitchell, you're lying about this, but there's not. Billy Mitchell can't produce evidence that doesn't exist.
Well, and I think if you think about your own life, and I think about my life, there's all these things that have clearly been a part of my life that if somebody said you have to bring me a piece of paper that proves that, it would be very difficult.
Tash then says that Billy Mitchell fabricated that second Namco plaque and all the evidence around that discovery. This plaque thing comes up a lot. He then says that he lied about playing Donkey Kong for Carlos Pinero to do technical testing, even after he was confronted with the video of him doing that. I don't actually know what Tash is trying to say here. This is in Tash's letter to the court begging for forgiveness.
I mean, if Twin Galaxies is getting unhappy with their attorney at this point, I think that is fair.
Yeah. And then the attorney gets, and this is like 15, 20 pages, so we can't go over it or you read through it on the podcast, but the declaration of Tash, the attorney for Twin Galaxies, as a result of these discovery issues that he was being brought up for at the hearing, it reads really poorly. So I guess let me talk really quick on that. So I was a high-level litigation attorney. I represented Fortune 500 companies. I also represented individuals against Fortune 500 companies and similar stuff. There's not a single piece of paper that I ever created that looks as unprofessional as Tash's declaration to this court. Yeah, and I'm not trying to be mean. It's just it reads like an email you would send to your ex in the middle of the night when you've been drinking. It is just so. It's kind of whiny. It's frumpy. It's all over the place. It's scattered. It doesn't make a lot of really good points. So Tash is also mad that he thinks Billy Mitchell lied about Josh Ryan setting up the recording device at that mortgage brokers convention when they had the mortgage brokers run with the fake joystick, or the not real joystick, whatever, the red joystick that was on the Donkey Kong machine. Because Josh Ryan then later said, I don't remember doing that. Now, guys, this is just a discovery. This is just part of the case. This is not something that you get sanctions for. Billy Mitchell remembers it one way. This guy remembers it one way. That's called trial. That's a dispute in evidence. That is a fact. That is a fact. That is a piece that the fact finder has to decide what's true. And the fact finder here is the jury. So this just goes to the jury.
Well, and realistically, this has been a very long time. So both people's testimony could be true. They could that could be the way that they're remembering it. Like, realistically.
So those were the issues, and so not one of those guys is sanctionable from Billy Mitchell. Those were the issues that were brought up for Billy Mitchell to try to sanction him, and not one of them is sanctionable. So Tash gets brought in front of the courts. Before this hearing, there's two hearings. There's the first hearing on Tash, and then there's going to be a second hearing. Because the first hearing, the court actually says, I think some of this from the attorney for Twin Galaxies might be sanctionable. We need to have a further hearing. During that hearing, Tash says, it really irritates the court. He says either we need to get real, court, or he says let's be real, and that irritates the court. He then says at the end of it, I promise I'll be a good boy from now on, court.
What?
Yeah, he says that to the court.
What jurisdiction is this?
This is in California.
Oh my gosh, does California just like that?
I don't know. The judge did not like that either.
I have read that now in the modern world, things have become a little less formal.
I mean, I don't think that this judge liked the informality there. So, but now we'll get into why Tash is really in trouble, though, and why he was brought for that hearing where he said he'd be a good boy. I
feel like so gross every time you say that.
Yeah, right. Can you imagine saying that in court? I mean, and you know, I've practiced in like every court pretty much. I mean, I've had jury trials in front of justices of the peace, and I've had jury trials in front of federal courts, and both I would never say that under any circumstances.
There's no circumstances, ever. Right? Like nowhere even close.
Right.
I would be like, no. No.
So, so there's a guy named Jerry Byram that is going to come up. He is allegedly the guy who is in possession of the plaques right now. Allegedly.
Alleged by whom?
Billy Mitchell, I think, had testified at some point that he thinks he gave it to him. Billy Mitchell doesn't really remember, but I think Jerry Byram has them. So the attorney hears that, and Tash, the attorney for Twin Galaxies, starts text messaging directly Jerry Byram without notifying anyone.
That's a no-no.
So, of course, in a lawsuit, there are witnesses. And communication between the attorneys and the witnesses generally needs to be noticed. So, like, if you're going to go talk to, say, a third-party witness, you tell the other side, I'm going to go talk to the third-party witness, and you're going to do it generally as a deposition. It's not that it's completely impossible to talk to a witness and not, but, like, you have to be very careful. It's, this is kind of ex parte communications without the knowledge of the court. And again, this is California. They have different ethics rules than Texas, and I'm not going to say that this was necessarily an ethical violation, but it might be. And that's what the court said. The court says it might just violate 3.4a of their rules of professional conduct, which is very similar to ours. You don't do it. You kind of don't do it.
It's not a good idea. Even if you get away with it, it casts doubt on the witness's testimony later. Like maybe you said some stuff that you don't know about, or promised them something, or who knows.
So the Mr. Byram, by all accounts, after hearing from this attorney, felt a little threatened. Because the attorney was like, give me those plaques. Where are those plaques? Why are you lying for him?
Well, that
by text
definitely
message.
Too. By text message.
Yeah, and so the real thing is they didn't give me the text messages, so I can't. But that is what Tash is saying in his thing, that he was like, yeah, I kind of said some of that stuff, but it wasn't meant to be a threat. I was just trying to get the truth.
Are you sure this is a real attorney? I thought all attorneys knew that if you were going to say something like that, you say it over the phone, so there's no record, unless somebody records it.
And
I don't know. Is California a one-party consent state or a two-party consent state? I have no idea.
Well, and allegedly in the text messages, he also says that Billy Mitchell might go to jail over this. He's fabricating evidence. Don't get implicated. Don't go to jail for Billy Mitchell and stuff like that.
I think we're really taking too far what anyone's going to put anyone in
jail
for. You should not.
I mean, this is deposition stuff. You can go talk to him at a deposition. You do not send text messages to a third-party witness who is also potentially you're potentially implicating them as a party on the other side of the lawsuit by your threats or whatever you. that was Mr. Byram. We don't actually know if he has the plaques or not. We have no idea where these plaques went.
But trash, perhaps.
Yeah,
Who knows?
And so, so apparently he also is sending criminal code screenshots by text to this guy saying, look at this, what are you doing?
That's like...
and so
I mean, does any real attorney operate by text message, even in the modern world?
I don't
know.
Like,
it just seems so... I mean, because that just also opens up your phone, potentially, if you cross certain lines. I don't know. I don't like it.
And yeah, he basically says I have debased myself before this court, and he goes
Whoa.
through. Yeah, he's making very big apologies because I think he was pretty concerned that he might get DQ'd out of the case and get a referral to the bar. And this is Twin Galaxies attorney, guys. So this is the guy who's supposed to be defeating Billy Mitchell, and he's playing right into all of Billy Mitchell's traps. Like, Billy Mitchell says that name, and Billy Mitchell wants nothing more than you to do ex parte communication to his witnesses. Because, one of the reasons this attorney for Twin Galaxies is probably doing it is Twin Galaxies is like, why are we spending all this money flying you across the country to depose all these random people about a plaque that isn't even relevant to the case? Like, what are we doing?
Great question.
So that was Jerry Byram. He definitely did those communications. He apologizes for them. He doesn't. He argues against it actually being an ethical violation. But the court has already said, I don't know, man.
I mean,
this
I
looks pretty
can't.
bad.
I'm trying to picture the judges I've been in front of and like looking at them in the eye and being like, yes, I did this. Please don't. You shouldn't punish me though. It was fine.
But it gets worse. So that behavior is pretty questionable, sketchy from an attorney. Then there was a third-party witness named Isaiah Triforce Johnson. Isaiah Triforce Johnson.
That's a good one.
I don't know why exactly he was talking to Isaiah Triforce Johnson, basically except to try to get him to throw Billy Mitchell under the bus. That's all I know, because I don't have the text messages. But the attorney, by text message to Isaiah Triforce Johnson, says that his religion requires him to do what he's asking him to do. It turns out that he is a Rastafarian, Isaiah Triforce. So, and I'm not kidding, in Tash's declaration, he quotes 3 different Bob Marley songs in his defense for what he did, and talks about how he loves Bob Marley and would never offend Rastafarians. I'm not making this up. He also talks about how his family has received lots and lots of civil rights harassments over the years, and that he would never offend someone's civil rights. But this isn't an official declaration of the court. He's quoting Bob Marley's Redemption song. He says one of Bob Marley's, this is in an official declaration to the court. He says one of Bob Marley's songs that resonates most with me is War. The lyrics from that song are from a speech given by Haile Selassie to the United Nations, and he talks about how skin color is not important.
Okay, but so he was drunk when he wrote that, right?
I don't know. We don't know that, so let's not get sued.
I mean, I'm not saying he was, but I'm like, it's a question. There's a question at the end of that. What other possible explanation could there possibly be?
But yeah,
is this about Isaiah or about the lawyer? Because
well, this is So he said.
Both?
So he goes into all of Bob Marley. He talks about his dad getting shot at the 7-Eleven. Yeah, it goes all.
What is Triforce's story? What is?
Well, we don't
fully
really
understand
know
what's going on.
We don't really know.
I can tell you a little about the guy if you want to know.
Okay. I mean, kind of.
Okay, so Triforce, if you will.
But
I guess what I'm saying is, it kind of sounds like even if this guy said everything the lawyer wanted him to say, it would be really easy for somebody to be like, guys, we can't really trust anything.
That's
he
the thing.
says.
He is not at all an expert on Donkey Kong to any stretch of the imagination.
Well, but I mean, Twin Galaxies just accepted an expert with no expert, foundation.
Their defense on this, the defense, right?
Wait. I mean, they're defending.
They're the defendant in the case.
Do they have?
It seems like they had no idea what they were doing. They hired a bunch of shysters that had no idea what they were doing, and none of it makes any sense.
Well, what I actually think is going on here is, and again, I'm not really trying to offend their attorney, but I think he was a little over his head. I think that he clearly doesn't have the kind of support structure you want to litigate the style of case.
Sure, you would need a lot, and it would be expensive. I mean, to really litigate it the way he was trying to litigate it, at least, I think he could have really narrowed the whole thing down and made it easier and more cost-effective.
Yeah, well, these flying across the country to depose a bunch of random gamers
That's
was
always
such
crazy.
a waste.
You know, I sat in on a case once where they were doing it in what was a more lucrative, and I mean, it kind of made, but it was a huge waste of time. They had interviewed like 40 witnesses across the country, and I was like, guys, y'all are all bad at your jobs.
Well, that's the thing. Discovery is a good way for attorneys to make money. Absolutely, 100%. Because discovery can be as expansive as the attorney wants it to be.
How much do you think that each side spent on this trial?
Well, last podcast I said that I bet Billy Mitchell is going to end up in the 50 to 60,000 range in overall costs, and that Twin Galaxies is going to be in the hundreds of thousands, if not potentially million range for their costs.
Wow.
I do so, and the more I've read about the case, and I'll get into Billy Mitchell's arrangement with his attorneys a little bit in just a second, but Twin Galaxies was definitely paying by the hour. But I will say that this lawyer is not a defamation specialist. This lawyer is not a litigation.
What is his background?
He does employment law.
Fantastic.
Plaintiff side.
Then,
Wow.
Yeah.
So he's not even experienced in defense work.
I mean, I don't know for sure how much he has done in defense work, but it does look like most of his materials are trying to court potential plaintiffs suing their employer.
So, like, do you think is it a firm or is he?
It's his firm.
It's his firm?
He has it with his sister.
I mean, that's got to be just like you take whatever case walks
Yeah,
in, right?
and I think the real thing is he was in the district, and he was clearly very, very on the side of Twin Galaxies and against Billy Mitchell, so maybe that helped. But you can definitely tell that he took it
Maybe
personally.
somebody was like somebody's friend, like,
Yeah,
college
it's possible.
roommates, whatnot.
And it is, knowing what we know now, it's possible Twin Galaxies costs were less, but obviously all of those flights, and there's still an hourly rate here, because there's no possible
Well, there's an hourly
recovery.
rate. It costs money to do the deposition. You have to pay a court reporter. Is it videotape? That costs more. They have to do a transcript. Are you getting a copy of the transcript? Probably,
And yeah,
it just really adds up.
Absolutely. I don't think any of these cross-country depositions were necessary. I think you show the jury the video, you get your expert to come on and show what MAME looks like, and you move on. Like, that's probably enough as an organization who is, the arbiter of records to take the record out. Because the original post that's now deleted from Twin Galaxies is so persuasive. Like, it's a very persuasive post. It's very clear that they can recreate this 100 times on MAME in the exact same locations that it happened on the video over and over and over. I feel like you can sell that to the jury pretty easily. You don't need all this nonsense about the plaques and the different discovery things. This was just Billy Mitchell getting the best of this attorney, guys. Billy Mitchell causes a bunch of, because Billy Mitchell just says stuff, right? He's a showman. He will say stuff. He said some stuff here that this attorney thought, I'm going to disprove it, and that's how I'll win the case. And then this attorney flew around the country interviewing hundreds of people. I don't actually know if it was 100, but lots and lots of people.
And failed. He
And
failed at
then-
his mission.
And then totally failed. And now we've got him making this statement to the court where he's throwing him
swear.
down at the mercy of the court and saying like a really weird...
You would not have to disbar me if I ever had to make a statement like that. I would just retire in shame.
Well, it's shocking. So, all of the lies that he says Billy Mitchell made are absolutely not sanctionable. These are just fact disputes. That's just fact disputes. Lies would be like what Kelsey was saying earlier, that I have evidence and then you destroyed the evidence, and you would
have to prove that actually
Right.
happened, which it totally happens sometimes. But like proving it, that's a whole nother matter.
Yeah,
isn't it?
and I don't even want to say, because I could talk about it for hours, how strong I've had evidence I've had of the other side destroying evidence,
Yeah.
and still not getting the judges to go along with me. And again, I have a 100% jury trial win rate. I have a 100% judge trial win rate, but I have very rarely been able to get really good progress on trying to get into discovery fights. They happen in almost every case. Most of the time, the judge is just like, guys, why are we just come to trial? Let's go to trial. Stop fighting about discovery. You take all your evidence. You take all your evidence. Let's come fight about it and let the jury decide or the judge decide. So all of this stuff that the attorney for Twin Galaxies is saying is not going to be sanctionable. His stuff that he did probably could have been. So that was kind of the background going into this settlement. So they all show up at court for this hearing, and they announce that they've settled instead. And the settlement was Twin Galaxies accepts the record, the lawsuits are dismissed, no more fighting. We don't know if there was any money exchange, but it doesn't seem like it.
Who has any money at this point? They're all broke. No, I don't know. Probably not. Maybe not Billy Mitchell. But
well, that's the thing. Billy Mitchell, I think he got exactly what he wanted.
Well, it was clearly always more about the reputation, right?
Well, and Twin Galaxies,
and
Twin Galaxies releasing the statement the way they did, there's a couple kind of side-eye type comments they're making, a couple kind of things that they're throwing a little shade, but they still say, the expert said this, we accept the scores, the end. So that's the settlement.
It's so weird to me though, because they really could have created their own standard, right? Like, it's not like Twin Galaxies is not answerable to a higher authority than, I guess, the law or whatever. They could have just said, listen, this score is disputed, moved it into a disputed category, and made no ultimate determination. And I don't think that's a lawsuit. That's not defamation. It's only coming out and saying he lied and cheated in an official capacity that even created the grounds for a defamation lawsuit.
So, yes, and that's the thing. They made it. Twin Galaxies, quote unquote, made it right to Billy Mitchell. That's Billy Mitchell winning, because they accepted his scores. They said that they believe that they're still real. And what I'll say is the internet right now is like the response is terrible. Like the YouTube videos that I've seen so far, the posts that I've seen so far are just so annoying and kind of like misunderstanding what just happened here, which is yes. Twin Galaxies played exactly into what Billy Mitchell wanted. Billy Mitchell got exactly what he wanted. Not to mention, we've talked before, Billy Mitchell won some fees from Twin Galaxies because Billy Mitchell was winning parts of this case over and over and over. Billy Mitchell was about to win this hearing. Twin Galaxies knew that. Twin Galaxies has been getting their butts kicked over and over and over, and so they have to. And then their attorney is, potentially about to get DQ'd, kicked out of the case. Twin Galaxies has to be like, oh my gosh, could we lose this at trial? Which I think, I don't know, given the attorney situations that we were dealing with, but this would be so one of the reasons that I have won all my trials, all of my jury trials, all of my judge trials, are because generally I want to take strong cases all the way. If it's not a strong case, perhaps there is a settlement. This would have been one of those strong cases. This could have been done, 50 to 100 grand in total attorney's fees, get it to trial, win, the end. But they just kept kind of falling into Billy Mitchell's trap. Now, I want to talk, though, really quick about Billy Mitchell's attorney situation, because it's a little bit more interesting, and we know about it because of that attorney Tash for Twin Galaxies also was really mad about the existence of Billy Mitchell's son. So you might recall from the previous podcast, all of the communications between Billy Mitchell and his son were privileged because the son was working as a law clerk at the firm that was representing Billy Mitchell. Tash, the attorney, says that that's not even real. That's not true.
Whoa.
Based on
it's
what?
A lie? He didn't really have the job?
That's what he says, because he says he's requested in discovery. Now, again, this is just Tash keep falling into trap after trap after trap. But he said, I never got paycheck or pay stubs for Billy Mitchell's son in discovery.
Well, everyone's paycheck stubs I haven't seen. I know they don't have a job at all.
Well, and I don't. I of course don't know if Billy Mitchell's son works for this law firm or not. I do know that the law firm was willing to say that he did, and that's enough.
That is enough for me.
Right. And so...
Real quick, before his son had the job at the law firm, is information shared between Billy and his son still...
No, that should not be privileged.
Okay.
But it basically seems like Billy Mitchell probably knows someone at this law firm. It definitely seems like they brought his son on in order for... I actually don't think it was as nefarious as some people think. I think it was so that the son could do a lot of the really annoying legwork, perhaps to make sure that this case happened and Billy Mitchell could have representation without costing Billy Mitchell a fortune. I think the firm... Because the son, based on everything I've seen, he's a West Point grad.
Well, that's significant.
And not a chump. This is... But I think it's possible that he got hired at the firm to help run this case.
Well, and you know how it is. Y'all already have a relationship. They're looking for a law clerk. That would kill two birds with one stone, he did go to West Point. My goodness.
Right. And so that... It does look like that the son was kind of running point for the firm.
Can I just say, Billy Mitchell's son went to West Point? There's got to be something decent about him, right? That's a great school.
I have no idea. I will say that Tash did kind of imply that maybe he didn't even go to West Point, but I don't think that that's true. I think the problem
is the military.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's That's like the officer academy, the absolute
it's like
tops.
the top one. I'll give anyone a certain amount of respect if they've made it there.
Well, but Tash, that's, you can see this attorney for Twin Galaxies just keeps getting into these disputes that are not helping his client. That he just needs to win because he thinks that he's right. And so the son definitely, he was appearing at depositions, and that really irritated Tash, which, a law clerk can appear at a deposition probably.
They bring them along for different reasons.
Right.
It's specific to the situation.
And Tash accuses the son of appearing sometimes virtually under the name Billy Mitchell, with no camera on, but there's no real proof or evidence there. And
I guess my problem with this is he keeps saying these crazy things, and at no point am I hearing because it is true that crazy things that are true, when you say them out loud, they can sound crazy, but normally you're like, this is why I think that this is the case, and I'm not hearing the why of any of this.
Well, and there was some evidence that perhaps it sometimes just said attorney for Billy Mitchell or counsel for Billy Mitchell, and it could have been the attorney. It could have been like the attorneys in a conference room, and perhaps the son was there or anything. I
understand that having a relative, because Corey and I are relatives, and we have worked cases before, and that does add a layer of complication to some things. And we've worked cases for our relatives and things before, and that also adds a layer of complication. But it's just part of it. I don't know what else to say. There are rules for those situations, and you stay on the right side of them.
Well, and I will absolutely say that I used to take great pleasure when I was an attorney in cases like this, getting the other attorneys to go down roads that I knew were time wasters.
Yeah.
Especially when it was going to cost my opponents a lot of money.
Yeah, I can think of at least one that we did together that was like that, and they got there'd be a bee in their bonnet about something, and you're like, oh, okay, you think that's interesting? Let's do it. Knowing it's going nowhere and it's just going to waste everyone's time and money, it's going to be really frustrating for them, and it's going to throw them off kilter.
Right.
They'll tilt in your lawsuit, which is fantastic for you.
Yeah, and it was always fun to do that.
You can see it coming, and it's it's part of the win of an attorney is putting the other attorney on tilt.
Right. Oh, they're going to take this discovery dispute bait that doesn't have anything to do with the case.
And they're going to spend all this time and these resources, and while they're distracted with that, you're going to go do the real work and beat them on something that matters.
And so that it's absolutely clear here that Billy Mitchell and his son and his lawyers, there's actually some implication from the attorney from Twin Galaxies saying that Billy Mitchell's attorneys weren't even doing any work. That it was all Billy Mitchell and his son, which I think he hasn't really thought that through. If Billy Mitchell and his son with no law degree are technically, it would be illegal to practice law, and there's no real evidence here. But if he's getting shellacked by just Billy Mitchell and his son, what is happening? Come on. Could it have gone different if Twin Galaxies hired a better attorney or a different attorney?
I am surprised that they did as poorly as they did, frankly. This guy seems like he had no business pretending to be a lawyer.
Well, I will say...
He has graduated law school, so I don't want to get sued.
Well, okay,
my apologies.
But you know how it is. If it's his own firm that he is with, he runs with his sister, there's no senior attorney that's looking at this saying, whoa, what you're doing, this is a bad idea. It's just him making his own decisions, and then it becomes completely his personal capital that changes everything. And, I was an attorney that had my own law firm at one time, and I definitely see how if you put your money on the wrong horse, that can go really sideways really fast. Even experienced attorneys at big firms with lots of supervision sometimes go off the rails, and or the whole firm goes off the rails in what they choose to focus on. I think that picking your attorney is the most important thing you could do in a lawsuit, picking the right attorney, but it's incredibly hard. As a lawyer, I think I do decent at it, but how's a layman supposed to be good at it?
Guys, they had an open shut case, and Billy Mitchell just got a settlement giving him everything he wants. And does Billy Mitchell care that he's banned from Twin Galaxies? No. No. A lot of people on the internet are really holding to that, and
what is Twin Galaxies? Why would that matter?
Right. Twin Galaxies moving forward, I can't see is worth anything.
Well, that's the other thing. I believe the lawsuit between Twin Galaxies and Walter Day, I'm 99.99999% sure that one is gone now too. That because they had sued Walter Day saying this was inflated value and everything, which it's a hard lawsuit to win. I don't think that they ever really had a chance of winning that because Twin Galaxies wasn't worth anything back then either. It was worth what you could potentially do with the name, right? And I think that's what the Chase Hall, the person who bought Twin Galaxies, had in mind was think about what I could do with this entity that has existed for so long, that has some credibility and stuff like that. But it didn't really, even back then. Like, these scores were still fake. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of fake scores. We all know now that there were at least thousands of fake scores in the record database. So, like, why hasn't someone, and I don't want to do it. So, like, every time I say this, people are like, you do it. Why hasn't someone just made a real records database that is, perhaps narrower, or perhaps has certain games that you're allowed to submit for a certain period of time, and then you go to the next games and stuff like that. Like, I feel like it's really insane to have one entity trying to record scores for every single game in the history of the world. Like, my son plays a game called Stumble Guys on my phone. It's a Fall Guys clone. They're tracking more than 150 records for that game right now. That's just like a phone game. So, like, obviously there's going to be issues with it. But, what is Twin Galaxies' ultimate play here? What could they possibly do? I would assume Jace Hall assumed that he was going to be running these big world record events, as part of, like, conventions and stuff like that, where you have arcade games, consoles, maybe some sort of, like, competitions, stuff like that showing up. Because you can see interest in that. You could see, like, Games Done Quick style stuff, too, the speed runs, stuff like that. Which Games Done Quick is very successful. They do what they do very well. So maybe that was the play for Twin Galaxies. Now, instead, he just let Billy Mitchell shellac him. Like, what is up with that?
I think that, who doesn't love video games, right? And I think in this business, we see a lot of people that's, everybody wants to find a way to make money in video games. But it's really more an interest in doing that than a plan to do that. And so maybe this is just another one of those things where they were like, we just have to get Twin Galaxies and it'll all work out. But I'm not sure that there ever was a plan. Definitely not seeing it executed. I actually think if Twin Galaxies was mine at this exact moment in time, I have some ideas, but I'm not going to give them all away.
Well, think about this too. Twin Galaxies has now released that statement, kind of accepting, not necessarily saying that the scores were real, but saying that the expert testimony, exists, and therefore they're going to reinstate the scores.
Well, I guess what they're saying is because they can't prove that it's utterly impossible, they're going to reinstate.
Yeah, but think about how much that's now going to be used if Billy Mitchell needs to sue anyone else. Think about how much he's going to say that he's already provided persuasive evidence to the record organization to reinstate those scores. So anyone else that he thinks about suing, anyone else who challenges those scores.
What you say is, listen, nobody proved he didn't cheat. They just proved that they couldn't prove, without right. Beyond a shadow of a doubt that he didn't cheat. And it kind of sounds like, without getting into it, I can't make an ultimate judgment, but it kind of sounds like there's some wiggle room there. A settlement is a settlement. It has not been tried by a jury or even a judge.
That's true.
It's ultimate. Most cases end in settlement, like 90+%. I don't even know what the today's statistic is, but most people just give up because it's expensive and they don't want to fight anymore, and there are risks in litigation and it's stressful and uncertain and all of those things. So the outcome here really isn't it? It's just winding back the clock to say we're just going to pretend we never fought about it.
Do you want to know what the judge said when it was over?
Thank God.
That's it. That was it. Yeah, the judge was just like, I'm so happy this is done, guys.
What a tremendous waste of judicial resources.
So then there is one very last thing to talk about, which is Billy Mitchell versus Carl. I think it's Jobst, but it could be Jobst. I don't know. He's an Australian or New Zealand YouTuber who has been just... we talked a little bit in the podcast, over the top on his criticism of Billy Mitchell, but people love that, right? So he's getting millions and millions of hits per video by maybe defaming Billy Mitchell. That's what Billy Mitchell sued him for. Now Carl Jobst has a very, very good benefit of not being in America, right?
I was going to ask, does he have to go through the New Zealand law system?
I actually don't think so. I think the lawsuit's been filed in America. Carl Jobst has raised hundreds of thousands of dollars in crowdsourced defense to defend himself, and but this is the title of Carl Jobst's newest video. And as an attorney, Kels,
okay,
what do you think the problem is? This is the title of it.
Okay.
Billy Mitchell lost his lawsuit.
Oh. Well, it's factually untrue.
Right.
They settled the lawsuit, so lost is one. It would also be inappropriate.
Right.
I think that in terms of strategic outcome, like Billy Mitchell is the happy party here. But I don't know.
I mean,
what is the video? I'm like more curious of the overall content of the video.
It's kind of trash. Basically, just saying that because Twin Galaxies has created this historical database and Billy Mitchell's still banned, that Billy Mitchell didn't win anything. But
he exhausted a bunch of resources from an organization he was really irritated at, and now their reputation is diminished. I mean, to me, that's a successful outcome, and he can continue his narrative. Nothing that's happened here stops him from doing that. It like supports his narrative to a certain degree.
I can kind of see that argument, but if it wasn't found in the guy's favor or thrown out by the judge or whatever, right?
I mean, the case was just settled. That's the only real way to describe it.
Yeah, as it was settled, I would say there was no winner.
But you
definitely
can settle,
no
and then
loser.
after the settlement,
I will say
I consider it a victory. I consider it because most cases do settle, and it is true that a lot of those settlements are in fact victories for one side. Like sometimes you settle a case and you wind up with a more favorable outcome than you would have received had you taken it all the way to trial. That is it's a win, but not a technical win.
Do you know what Carl Jobst's original video title was for the video that's now titled Billy Mitchell Lost His Lawsuit? Cheater Billy Mitchell lost his lawsuit. He took the cheater off. So why? I don't know. Because it's kind of funny because I think it'd be more acceptable to say that part than it is lost his lawsuit.
To be honest, I think that he probably did. I don't want to be too harsh because again, I'm kind of pro Billy Mitchell. Especially, I have to say one of the things that makes me like him more is that he keeps succeeding, and I kind of love that about him.
Well, it's in many ways it's interesting because it's not like he keeps winning because everyone else is either not taking it seriously or one of the ways to win a lawsuit, right, is to care more about it than the other side. Billy Mitchell would always win based on that. But the other side is also just, he's playing them for jumps over and over and over. And now he's sued all of his friends. He doesn't have very many friends.
Oh yeah, no, I don't want to trade lives or anything. That would be crazy.
He's definitely not living the best life, and everyone does still think he cheated, except of course there's going to be people that don't now. This is going to actually work in the minds of some people. They're going to say, well, he produced an expert, et cetera, et cetera. Now I think the best thing he could do is to start showing up at live events and putting up some high scores, because that would really,
I agree.
The Billy Mitchell victory tour has to be coming here. And if I was him, that's what I would start doing. And I also said this before, if I really hope, and I don't think he did, but it would have been really smart for him to have a documentary film crew with him for the last 5 years, because I guarantee you that, because when he's leaving the courtroom with this settlement, Tash, the attorney for Twin Galaxies, comes over and shakes Billy Mitchell's hand and basically says nice things to Billy Mitchell as Billy Mitchell leaves. And everyone is, and you can tell the attorney is super relieved. Billy Mitchell's probably a little relieved because he kind of got what he wants. So, yeah.
Well, plus, it's always rewarding to not have to be in a lawsuit anymore.
And I do think, and I said this last time, and it's actually been true the whole time, and that's one of the things that I don't think we're very good at as society at picking up on. Carl Jobst, the YouTuber who's been throwing Billy Mitchell under the bus, has kind of been lying a little bit the whole time. Has kind of been exaggerating the truth against Billy Mitchell the whole time. Has kind of constantly put Billy Mitchell into a position that was a little worse than he was. And now, of course, saying that Billy Mitchell lost the lawsuit as the title of your video is pure nonsense. Billy Mitchell didn't lose the lawsuit. Billy Mitchell's scores were reinstated. Twin Galaxies had to create a whole nother database, allegedly. We talked about that, but they're not really making another database. But they've had to create a whole nother database just to kind of satisfy what they want to do internally and feel good about themselves again. But, scores are reinstated. Evidence has been presented by an expert that these scores are potentially real. Therefore, scores are back. Powerful stuff. I do think that Carl Jobst is now in a lot of trouble in the defamation lawsuit, except for the fact that they are in different countries. And I'm hoping we don't talk about Billy Mitchell anytime soon, but if something does happen there, we might get back into it. But the point is...
I know the point.
Billy Mitchell won.
Everything's fake, so don't measure yourself against other people.
Yeah, guys, high scores,
oh, no.
High scores are dumb, a little bit. High scores against yourself, important. High scores against someone else right next to you in the same game, same arcade, sure, interesting. fighting about high scores is kind of a waste of time because they are all kind of fake. Like, there's so many issues that can happen. There's so many problems. It's not worth getting worked up about. And it's not worth kind of trying to tear down someone, even if you really, really hate them about. Because that's the thing. I understand that the internet really, really hates Billy Mitchell, except for Kelsey. But
I'm not the internet.
but this settlement was definitely pro Billy Mitchell. He definitely kind of got what he wanted. And it's true he's not going to be on the official Donkey Kong leaderboard, but it's because he needs to put up a higher score. Those scores are no longer relevant.
I'm looking forward to the victory tour. Come to Free Play, Billy.
And well, I mean, he's been here. He owns our current high score on Pac-Man. He no longer owns our high score on Donkey Kong, so he needs to come back and defend his Donkey Kong high score. And he needs to put up a perfect game because he was a little short of a perfect game.
Anyone else
Pac-Man.
out there that wants to get the high score on Pac-Man, it is doable.
Yeah.
There is about 1,660 points left on that bone.
Yeah, it was not a perfect, so it was just a kill screen on the Free Play Pac-Man. It's sitting there at Free Play Richardson right now. I would encourage you to get it first because maybe that'll make Billy Mitchell upset, and that's all what y'all want, right? Y'all want to get him, so let's get him by breaking some high scores. But yes, for real, guys, this is probably one of the last times we'll ever talk about Billy Mitchell. We actually, I thought it got more interesting as it went, not necessarily less interesting, which is what caused some of these podcasts, because instead of it being about the truth, it started becoming about lawsuit strategy, litigation strategy, and that was kind of where Billy Mitchell had the upper hand, for better or worse, whether you like him or not. So for now, Billy Mitchell, we're putting this topic to rest. The next podcast will absolutely not be about Billy Mitchell. The next podcast will be about, maybe hot dogs now on the Free Play menu, stuff like that. So for now, thank you so much for tuning in. Hit that subscribe. We are back to making content. We're back to getting content uploaded to the YouTube, and we really appreciate when y'all watch. So thanks, guys.
Thank you.